The wind howled through the jagged cliffs of Black Hollow like a wounded animal, carrying with it the scent of salt and something darker, something ancient. Jake Mercer tightened his grip on the rusted iron gate, his boots sinking into the rain-softened earth. The letter in his pocket felt like it was burning a hole through his jacket. If you're reading this, I'm already gone. The stones are waking. Find the first one before they do. L. Lena had been missing for 3 days. His sister, the brilliant archaeologist, who had always been too curious for her own good. The police had given up, but Jake knew better. He knew about her obsession with the standing stones scattered across the moors, the ones locals whispered about in hushed tones. The gate creaked open, revealing a narrow path choked with thorns. At the end stood the first stone, a towering monolith of black rock, its surface etched with symbols that seemed to shift under the moonlight. Jake's breath hitched. It looked exactly like the sketch in Lena's journal. He reached out, his fingers brushing the cold surface, and the world tilted. A vision slammed into him. A woman in a tattered dress running through the moors, her face streaked with dirt and terror. Lena. Behind her, shadows moved. Not human, not animal, but something else. Something that slithered between the trees like smoke. Jake staggered back, gasping. The stone was warm now, pulsing faintly, as if it had a heartbeat. A twig snapped behind him. You shouldn't be here, a voice rasped. Jake spun. An old man stood at the edge of the path, his face hidden beneath a tattered hood. They'll smell your fear, he whispered. The stones remember, and they're hungry. Before Jake could respond, the man vanished into the mist. The wind died. The moors fell silent, and then, from the depths of the earth, the stones began to sing. The sound wasn't singing. It was breathing. Jake stumbled back from the monolith, his pulse hammering in his throat. The noise rose from the earth itself, a low, guttural vibration that made his teeth ache. The standing stone trembled, its ancient carvings glowing faintly, pulsing like a slow, sick heartbeat. They'll smell your fear. The old man's warning slithered through his mind. Jake clenched his fists, forcing himself to stay still. The mist thickened around him, curling like fingers against his skin. Cold, too cold for summer. Then, footsteps, not from the path, from inside the stone. A wet, scraping sound, like something dragging itself through damp earth. Jake's breath fogged the air in ragged bursts. He should run. He needed to run. But Lena was out there, and if these stones had taken her, he would tear them apart with his bare hands. A whisper brushed his ear. Jake, his sister's voice. It came from behind the monolith. Jake lunged toward it, and the ground opened. Dirt collapsed beneath his boots. He fell, crashing into a shallow pit, his elbows slamming against slick stone. The air reeked of wet clay and rotting leaves. And there, half buried in the mud, was Lena's backpack. Jake grabbed it. The fabric was damp, streaked with something dark. Not mud, blood. A choked noise escaped him. He tore the bag open. Inside, her field notebook, a shattered compass, and a single Polaroid photo. The image showed Lena standing in a circle of stones, her face pale with terror. Behind her, the shadows weren't right. They twisted upward, forming shapes, tall, spindly, their limbs too long, their heads tilted at impossible angles. Scrawled on the photo's border, in Lena's handwriting, "They are not stones." Above him, the mist stirred. Something moved at the edge of the pit, slow, deliberate. A hand, gray and withered, its fingers ending in cracked, blackened nails, curled over the rim. Then another and another. Jake scrambled back, his spine hitting cold stone. The thing in the mist pulled itself forward, its body unfolding like a broken puppet. Its face was a nightmare of sunken flesh and jagged teeth, its eyes hollow pits that dripped black. It spoke. "She's ours now." Jake's scream died in his throat as the creature lunged. He rolled sideways just as its claws scraped the stone where his head had been. The thing shrieked, a sound like grinding bones, as Jake kicked out blindly, his boot connecting with something brittle. It staggered back, but the others were coming now, their twisted forms emerging from the mist like nightmares pushing through thin reality. Lena's notebook burned against his chest. He had seconds. Fumbling with numb fingers, Jake tore it open to the last marked page. His sister's frantic handwriting swam before his eyes. The stones are prisons. The carvings are locks. Break the pattern. Break their hold. The center stone bleeds. The center stone. Jake's head snapped up. Through the swirling mist, he saw it, the largest monolith, its surface carved with a spiraling pattern that made his eyes water to look at. And at its base, something dark seeped from the earth. Not water, blood. The creatures closed in, their breath like rotting leaves. One lashed out. Jake barely dodged, feeling the wind of its claws pass his face. He ran, not toward the path, but deeper into the circle, toward the bleeding stone. The ground trembled. The moment Jake touched the center monolith, the world split. Visions assaulted him. A village burning under a black sun. People screaming as shadows pulled themselves from their mouths. A hooded figure carving the first symbols, weeping as he sealed something away. Lena, now, trapped in some dark place, her hands pressed against invisible walls. And then the truth, terrible and complete. The stones were never worship sites. They were cages, and whatever slept inside them was waking. The creature's claws sank into his shoulder. Jake screamed and slammed his palm against the spiral carving. The stone screamed back. Light erupted in jagged bolts, cracking the monolith down its center. The creatures howled as the carvings flared white-hot, their bodies twisting like paper in flame. The ground heaved, throwing Jake to his knees as the other stones began to shatter, one by one. And from the fractures, shadows poured out. Not the twisted creatures, people, dozens of them, blinking against the moonlight, their clothes from different eras, their faces gaunt with forgotten time. And among them, Lena. She collapsed into his arms, her skin icy but alive. "You broke the cycle," she whispered. Then her eyes widened. "But he's free now, too." Behind them, the last shadow coalesced, taller than the others, his form flickering between man and something older. The hooded figure from Jake's vision, the one who'd made the prison, the first keeper. He smiled, and his teeth were shadows. "Thank you," he breathed, and then the night swallowed him whole. Epilogue. The police found them at dawn, two siblings clinging to each other in a field of broken stones. No one believed their story, not about the creatures, not about the prisoners trapped for centuries. But in Black Hollow, the old folk nod when they pass. They know. And when the new moon comes, they lock their doors, because some stones should never wake.